The story begins with a gray-haired old man standing at the window, watching the criminal show below him. A group of rioters are vandalizing cars. The owner of the car then comes to find out what is going on, but instead he was beaten mercilessly. Eventually, the owner collapsed covered in blood and stopped breathing. The rioters also blocked the pedestrian crossing for some time. This is where the illegal stuff transactions took place, that is, human trafficking, murders, and robberies. The residents in the area just went about their business and didn't complain. As he witnessed these horrific events, the old man had no other choice but to stand by and watch it all, because he promised his wife many years ago, as soon as he took off his military uniform, he would stay away from danger and spend the rest of his life in peace. The old man's name was Harry Brown. He was a senior officer in the Royal Marine. With a meager pension, he retired from the military and lived a solitary life in a warehouse apartment near the slums area. Every day he walked to the hospital to see his ailing wife. Even though she was in a coma, Harry continued to visit her every day. Then he went to a nearby pub for a drink and played chess with Leonard, his old friend. That night, Harry received a call from the hospital. He was told that his wife was in critical condition. And in the pouring rain, Harry got up and headed immediately to the hospital. He had to cross the pedestrian path, but he was afraid of meeting one of the criminals. As a result, he chose to take another road. Upon arriving at the hospital, he failed to see his wife for the last time, and he wept bitterly in regret. The next day, Harry cried while burying his wife. Now he could only hang out with his friend, Leonard. The two men still play chess in the pub every day. Leonard advises him to avoid Sid, the bar owner, because he deals with guns and women. But neither of them knew whether this was true or not. Afterwards, they go to the toilet together, and there Leonard expresses his fear as the criminals put trash in his mailbag and slap him. He's had enough, and he pulls out a cutlass from his coat pocket. Harry realizes this and tries to stop his friend, and Harry says that he will accompany him to the police station. But Leonard states that he has contacted the police, and they only act if someone is killed. He turns around and walks out of the pub. Late at night, someone set fire to a pile of plastic waste in front of Leonard's house. He then woke up because of smoke that quickly filled the room. He struggled to get up and put out the fire. Afterward, Leonard rushed to the door panting. The next day, Detective Inspector Alice Frampton and her colleague arrived at Harry's house and told him the bad news. The detective says that Leonard died on the side road last night, but the identity of the assailant is unknown, and the police are still investigating. Hearing that his best friend has been killed, Harry can't longer control himself, and he promises to break his promise to his late wife. He was at a loss, as he couldn't save his friend. But Detective Frampton leads the police to 4 suspects in Leonard's murder. Noel Winter was one of them, who arranged for his uncle to hire a lawyer. So when the police questioned them, they all said the same thing. He not only insulted the 2 policemen, but also warned them to be careful when walking. Due to lack of evidence, the suspects were eventually released. Meanwhile, Harry was lonelier than ever, with no one to drink with or talk to. Disappointed, he had a few more drinks at the bar. He took out his wallet and paid for his drinks. Then a junkie was watching him, and unbeknownst to him, Harry walked back to his house. Along the river, when he came to the bottom of the bridge, a man appeared from the darkness. The man brandished a knife and demanded to hand over his money. Startled, Harry grabbed the robber's hand and drove the knife into his chest. The robber collapsed quickly and eventually died. Harry then made sure no one saw him, and then continued on his way. The next morning, Frampton visits him again and tells him the news about the Leonard case, which is to recognize Harry's military status after seeing photos and decorations from his time in the Marine Corps. He tells Harry that at the crime scene, investigators found an antique army knife. Fingerprints and fibers from the Leonard suit were there. Harry states that he knows about the knife and confirms that Leonard used it to protect himself. That he did it because Leonard thought that the police couldn't do it. However, the detective stated that surely the defense lawyer would argue that Leonard's murder was an act of self-defense. This means that the murderer will be charged with manslaughter, not murder. The detective advised him to prepare for the outcome of the trial. Harry becomes angry and throws Detective Frampton out of his house. Afterwards, Harry goes through his belongings and takes a piece of jewelry and a military knife given to him by his wife. He starts planning his revenge and follows a drunk addict to their house late at night. Harry said that he was thinking of buying a gun to shoot the pigeons chirping on his roof. They take him to the yard, where it is overgrown with illegal plant. Harry entered the dirty and dark interior. Seen on the sofa sat a woman who had been injected with something. He also saw the video of her assault on the television. Full of anger, Harry took his gun and loaded it silently, and he attacked them with the knife and gun while they were not looking. After that, Harry took the woman to a parked Jeep car. He found a jerrycan of gasoline and set the whole building on fire. Harry took the woman to the hospital in the Jeep and stuffed a wad of money into her clothes. He honked loudly and then disappeared into the night. Later, the woman received treatment, and the medics found a lot of money in her clothes. Detective Frampton and his coworkers then came to the hospital, and the woman suspects something is wrong because a normal criminal wouldn't shoot a woman and then drive her to the hospital. On the other hand, Harry headed to the church and emptied the contents of the bag into the cremation box. Then he goes to the cemetery to say goodbye to his family. Now he will start his revenge plan. Late at night, Harry looks out the window, observing the thugs downstairs. Finally, an opportunity arises to kill a bookie. After killing him, Harry takes one of the thugs, a gang member, upstairs to interrogate him. Harry picked up a leather pipe and shouted at him. Finally, the thug explained what had happened. He admitted that night Leonard attacked them with a machete or cutlass, but he was beaten by them, and the culprit was a man named Noel who killed Leonard with his army knife. After that, the gangster handed over the video he had recorded. They stabbed Leonard with the knife and pee on him. Harry was furious with the way Leonard died. He chained the thug up and took him to the sidewalk like a dog. Elsewhere, Noel and another thug were involved in a horrific situation. In a shootout, the chained thug is killed by Noel's two terrified friends. Shortly after, Harry kills another thug. Noel, on the other hand, manages to escape. Harry struggles to keep up and eventually runs out of breath. He suffers from empyema and falls to the ground. Before passing out, Harry throws his gun into the river. He was later found and eventually taken to hospital. Detective Frampton then came to the hospital to see him. The doctor stated that Harry had difficulty breathing and was unable to answer police questions. However, Detective Frampton detected gunpowder on his jacket. He suspected that the two murdered men were linked to Leonard's murder and began to suspect Harry. The detective then returned to the police station and informed the chief of police of his views and suspicions. He requested that Harry's clothes be tested for gunpowder, but the chief didn't think that this old man could kill several people in quick succession. Given the amount of unrest in the city these days, the police chief didn't have time to listen to her suggestions. The chief even told Detective Frampton to drop the Leonard case. Police forces then battled the uprising in the city. It quickly turned into a riot, and the crowd pelted the police with stones and gasoline bombs. They also vandalized and set fire to cars. On the other hand, the police responded passively by forming a line with shields. Meanwhile, Harry woke up slowly in the hospital room. He stood up and removed his tubes. Despite the doctor's instructions, he leaves the hospital quickly because Leonard's revenge is not yet complete. On the other hand, Detective Frampton known that Harry had left the hospital without permission. He was convinced that Harry would go after Noel, so he and his partner, Terry Highcock, rushed to the riot area. The riots escalate and Detective Frampton and his partner Highcock are attacked as they enter the neighborhood. There was then a serious vehicle collision. Highcock was hit in the head and seriously injured. Both detectives were trapped in the vehicle. Fortunately, Harry arrived just in time, where he helped the detectives and then headed to the Sidey's bar. When the SID saw them, he said he would call an ambulance. Inside the bar, Detective Frampton sees a gun on Harry's belt, and his suspicions were confirmed. At this point, Harry realized that he knew the truth and stated that these bastards had turned killing people into a sport, so he has to teach them a lesson. But Detective Frampton tells him that if Harry is going to kill Noel, SID will kill him back, because SID is Noel's uncle. Harry was very surprised when he heard this news. It seems that Leonard was right when he said that SID did nothing but hurt his life. Then Harry went to see Sid with a gun. He was surprised to find Noel hiding there. SID finds out what happened to Leonard and tells Harry that Noel didn't kill Leonard, but Harry then gave the cell phone containing the video to Sid and claimed that the rioters killed Leonard and recorded the whole incident on Noel's cell phone. Harry began to feel dizzy. Sid approached and seemed worried about him. Carefully, Sid took Harry's gun. But after that, Sid immediately changed his attitude and beat Harry's stomach. When Detective Frampton heard the commotion outside the bar, he immediately called for help. Noel approached and attacked her surprisingly. SID then took Harry to the outer room and beat him up as well. After that, SID scolded Noel for recording someone's murder. And Sid also intended to throw the detectives and Harry into the street to make it look as if they died in the riot. First, they had to kill Harry and the detectives, so Sad put his hand on Heacock's nose and lips until his breathing stopped. Then Noel tried to do the same with Frampton. But luckily Harry wakes up and pulls a gun out of his sock, then shoots Noel, who then collapses and dies. When Sid realized this, he shot Harry in the shoulder and approached him, then raised his gun to shoot Harry in the head. Harry fearlessly told him to take the shot. At that moment, Sid saw 2 red dots on his chest and was instantly killed by the sniper. Later, it was discovered that the police had completely wiped out the drug cartels and the evil forces of thugs in the city. During a press conference, a reporter stated that it has been reported that a former naval commando was responsible for many killings in the volatile area as a vigilant act. The police chief, however, denied the rumors and announced that Frampton and Highcock would be awarded medals of honor. On a side note, Harry takes a walk in the beautiful courtyard, where the path, previously covered in graffiti, has finally been repainted. Harry appreciates it and calmly walks towards the sidewalks and underpasses that are now finally quiet and safe. In the end, Harry and the police managed to wipe out the city's gangsters. With that success, the movie ended.